never thought I'd go back there. Camp Grinlow was supposed to be gone, buried beneath years of silence and rot. But nostalgia is a dangerous thing. It makes you forget why you left in the first place. We thought it would be fun. Just one night. 3 old friends reliving a piece of our childhood where everything once felt safe. But some places remember you, and some games never end. If you ever hear whistling in the woods after dark, don't follow it. Don't move. Don't even breathe. I never planned to go back to Camp Grinlow. If you grew up anywhere near Pine Hollow, you've probably heard the name Old Summer Camp, tucked between 2 lakes and a forest that always smelled like wet cedar and rust. It shut down the summer after our last season there. My mom got the letter in the mail, an official notice folded, twice creased at the edges, like it had been mailed 100 times before it reached us. Due to unforeseen maintenance and safety issues, Camp Grinlow will be permanently closed. That was all it said. No reason, no warning. Just like that, the place that raised us, gone. I was 15 then. I didn't realize how much that place meant until it disappeared. All the laughter, the fires, the mosquito bites that left little constellations on our legs. Suddenly, they were memories I could never go back to. That was also where I met Max and Annie. We were in cabin 3, our first year 3 kids, thrown together by luck, and a counselor who didn't care about seating charts. Max was loud. He laughed like he was trying to scare the silence away. Ani was the opposite, quiet, sharp, always observing before she spoke. I was somewhere in between, too cautious to be bold, too restless to fit in. The 3 of us didn't become friends instantly. It took one stupid prank. Max wanted to sneak out during rest hour to dump a bucket of pond water on the girls in cabin 7. I went along because he dared me. Annie caught us halfway across the clearing, flashlight in hand, the counselor's whistle echoing nearby. I froze. Max bolted. Annie... She didn't run. She stepped forward, pointed at the ground, and said she'd lost her bracelet, that we were helping her look for it. The counselor bought it. We didn't get written up. After that, we were inseparable. We wrote letters after camp. When we got older, we texted called sent memes. Before memes were even a thing. By the time college rolled around, we ended up at schools close enough to meet again. And when life got too heavy, exams, jobs, breakups, we'd say the same thing every time. Remember Camp Grinlow? That was our shorthand for better days. Years later, Max found a drone video on some hiking channel. It was the camp, or what was left of it. The cabins were skeletons, the docks half sunk into the lake. The camera drifted over the fire pit, where we'd roasted marshmallows and sang songs until we lost our voices. I remember that sinking feeling in my stomach. It looked wrong, dead somehow. Annie texted first. I kind of miss it. Max replied, You miss the mosquitoes and warm milk? She wrote back, No, I miss what it felt like. With you too. The chat went silent. I typed something and erased it twice. Then Max broke the quiet. We should go. Annie sent a laughing emoji, then seriously. Yeah, one night, like the old days. And before I could stop myself, I said yes. That night, I lay awake, thinking about what we were planning. I tried to tell myself it was harmless, just 3 old friends visiting a memory. But something about it didn't feel right. It wasn't just nostalgia. It was more like something was waiting. And deep down, I think part of me already knew Camp Grinlow hadn't really closed. It was just sleeping. The drive up to Grinlow felt longer than I remembered. The road twisted through pines and low fog, and every turn looked the same gravel tree's silence. I hadn't been there in over a decade, but I still knew the smell. Damp earth smoke and the faint tang of algae from the lake. By the time I pulled off the main road, the sun was already bleeding into the tree line. I saw Annie's car parked just off the gravel loop, neat parallel, like she'd measured the distance herself. She was standing beside it, with her arms crossed, staring at what used to be the entrance sign. The words, Camp Grinlow, were gone. Only the wooden frame remained weathered and hanging by a single rusted hinge. "You're late," she said as I stepped out. "You're early." A small smile tugged at her lips, but it didn't last. Her eyes kept drifting past me toward the dark stretch of trees that led into camp. "Did you check the cabins yet?" I asked. She shook her head. "By myself. No thanks. I figured we'd do it together." The air felt heavier than it should have, the kind of quiet that made your ears ring. When we were kids, you could always hear something: laughter, whistles, songs, the clang of pots from the mess hall. Now just wind. 10 minutes later, tires crunched behind us. Max's car rolled in crooked one headlight, dimmer than the other. He stepped out, already grinning gum in his mouth, and a backpack slung over one shoulder. "Took the scenic route," he said. "Saw a bear. Or maybe a stump. Hard to tell when you're doing 50. Annie rolled her eyes. "You brought the tent, right?" He thumped the trunk. "Tent snacks and an old speaker. I'm prepared for a spiritual experience." The three of us just stood there for a while, looking around. The camp was smaller now. The field where we used to play, capture the flag, was swallowed by weeds. The docks we'd jumped from were only frames jutting out of the water. "It's weird," Max said quietly. "Feels like it's shrinking." "It's not," I said. "We just got bigger." "Speak for yourself." He grinned. I peaked in 8th grade. Annie gave a soft laugh, the first real sound of life I'd heard since getting there. For a second, it felt like the years had peeled away, and we were just kids again, waiting for the dinner bell. We followed the old trail to the fire pit. The path was still there, but the forest had leaned in closer. Branches hung low enough to brush our shoulders, and roots split through the dirt like veins. The fire pit sat in the same place it always had. The benches were sunken and warped, but intact. The ring of stones was blackened with soot, the ghosts of 1,000 campfires still clinging to their surfaces. "Still here," I murmured. "Creepy, right?" Max said, dropping his pack beside a bench. I half expected this place to be gone. We unpacked quietly. Annie cleared the pit, brushing away leaves and ash, until the stones showed through. Max found some half-dry wood by the tree line, and within minutes, we had a small fire crackling to life. The flames painted everything orange: our faces, the tree trunks, the ruins beyond. It was comforting for a while. We roasted marshmallows and told the same old jokes we told when we were kids. Max burned his first one black and ate it anyway. Annie rolled her eyes, muttering something about charcoal poisoning. It was normal, peaceful. But even then, something felt wrong. The fire crackled like it was breathing. The wind would die for a few seconds, long enough for the forest to feel like it was holding its breath. I told myself it was just nostalgia, that I was reading too much into an old place and a long night. But as the sky darkened and the woods began to swallow the sound of our laughter, I started to notice it. The silence between the flickers of flame, the faint echo of something moving just beyond the tree line. Like the camp was remembering us too. and it didn't seem happy we'd come back. We built the fire the same way we used to, stacking the logs in a teepee and feeding the smallest twigs into the base. The flames caught fast, licking upward, throwing shadows across our faces and the warped benches around the pit. The air smelled like pine sap and old smoke. For a while, it was almost peaceful. Almost. Max found a stick and skewered a marshmallow like a pro. You know, he said, holding it over the fire, I think I could still pass for a counselor. Annie snorted. Yeah, maybe at a camp for delinquents. I smiled but said nothing. It was strange being here again, familiar and wrong all at once. The cabins beyond the fire pit looked like corpses of what they'd been. The trees had grown closer together, pressing in like they wanted the place gone. The conversation drifted the way it always did with us. Stories from college bad jobs, relationships that didn't last. We laughed genuinely, maybe for the first time in years. Then Annie said it. Do you guys remember that game? Max grinned before she even finished. Statues and songs. How could I forget? My chest tightened at the memory. The one where you had to move when the humming started and freeze when it stopped. That's the one. Annie's eyes glimmered in the firelight. You always cheated, Max. I didn't cheat, he said through a mouthful of marshmallow. I strategized. You pushed me over, she shot back. Twice. Only because you were getting cocky. You were 8. Exactly. Peak performance age. We all laughed then. The kind of laugh that comes from somewhere deep before time and life carved it out of you. For a few seconds, it felt like the years had peeled away. Just 3 kids again under a summer sky that never seemed to end. The laughter faded, replaced by the crackle of the fire. Annie stared into it, twisting the empty plastic of the marshmallow bag in her hands. That's when I heard it soft at first, almost blending with the wind, a whistle, a tune. I glanced at Max. He raised his eyebrows, smiling like he thought I was pranking them. But Annie froze. Okay, Max, she said, voice tight. You can quit it. Wasn't me. Seriously, I asked. He held up his phone. Battery's dead. And I didn't bring any Bluetooth speaker tricks this time. The whistle came again. 3 notes, pause, then 3 more. It was the same tune, the statues and songs melody. Annie's smile faltered. You're not actually serious right now, right? You didn't plan this. Max shook his head, chewing slower. No joke. For a moment, none of us spoke. The fire crackled louder, like it was filling the silence. The whistle floated from somewhere near the tree line, faint, steady, rhythmic. Max laughed nervously. Well, maybe we should play. Annie turned sharply toward him. But it's probably just some hiker or a hunter messing around. Let's give them a show. She frowned. You're not serious. He grinned, but there was something in his eyes I hadn't seen before. What's the worst that could happen? The whistle came again, closer now. 3 notes, pause, 3 more. Max stood up, brushing dirt from his jeans. All right, game on. He started walking toward the clearing, and despite myself, I followed. Annie sighed, muttering something under her breath, but she came to. We stepped out into the open field, the same one we used to play on as kids. The grass was overgrown, patchy, and brittle under our shoes. The sky was darker now, moon half hidden, behind a smear of clouds. The tune echoed again, threading through the trees. Max spread his arms wide. See, it's just a sound. Probably the wind through the whistle stopped. He froze, mid-sentence, mid-step, his mouth still half open. Annie let out a shaky laugh. All right, she said. You've made your point. But I couldn't laugh. My stomach felt like ice, because even though the sound had stopped, the trees were still. The wind had died, and yet the air around us, it moved. It pressed against my skin like something breathing. That was the first time I realized we hadn't come back alone. The whistling carried deeper into the trees, a tune stretched thin by distance and wind. It wasn't loud, but it had a way of sinking into my chest, steady, rhythmic, deliberate. 3 notes, pause, 3 more, like a heartbeat echoing through the forest. Max grinned like a fool and took a step forward. "All right, whoever's doing that, you win. Creepy factor 10 out of 10. Annie didn't laugh. "Stop. Don't go in there." Her voice cracked slightly, the first time I'd ever heard fear in it. Max smirked, but hesitated. "What, you think the forest's haunted now?" "No," she said, hugging herself. "I just don't want to humor your prank." I glanced between them, half ready to say something that would break the tension. But then the whistle came again, louder, this time closer. And it wasn't coming from one direction. It was circling us. The fire behind us snapped, throwing sparks into the air. The sound rippled through the clearing, like the trees were answering back. "Okay," Max said slowly, "that is new." The forest felt alive, not in the way it used to when we were kids, when it hummed with crickets and laughter. This was different. The air was too still, the dark between the trunks too deep. It felt aware. "Maybe it's a bird," I said, though I didn't believe it. "What bird whistles that pattern?" Annie whispered. We all froze again as the tune repeated. The same notes, the same pause. And then beneath it, a new sound, faint like the creak of something old, moving through the trees. Max took another step toward the noise flashlight, cutting through the dark. "Let's just see what it is." "Don't," Annie hissed, grabbing his arm. "Max, don't." He shook her off. "We came all this way, didn't we? If someone's out there, I want to know who." He raised his voice. "Hey, you want to scare us? Come on out." The whistling stopped. A silence heavier than any sound swallowed the clearing. Even the fire seemed to pull inward, shrinking its light. We stood there, 3 grown adults in the ruins of our childhood, staring into the black between the trees, waiting, listening. Then from somewhere deep inside, the forest came an echoing hum. Low, human. The same melody, but this time it wasn't whistled. Someone was humming our old game song. Annie took a step back. "We need to go. Now." Max's jaw clenched. "It's just..." The hum cut off mid-note, replaced by a single short whistle right behind us. We spun. Nothing. Only trees and a thin drift of smoke from the dying fire. My skin crawled. Every instinct told me we weren't alone. "Let's go," I said. "Please." Max nodded reluctantly. "Fine. Back to camp. We'll pack up okay." No one argued. We turned toward the path, flashlights trembling, as we started back through the overgrown trail. The sound didn't follow, not at first. But halfway to the fire pit, the forest sighed. Branches shifted above us like something had brushed against them. And in the distance, so faint, it almost blended with the night 3 notes. Pause. 3 more. The same game we used to play. Only now. It was playing us. We walked fast, flashlights trembling in our hands, the beam bouncing across twisted roots and patches of dead grass. None of us talked. The sound of our own breathing filled the space where laughter used to be. When the fire came back into view, it was smaller, half-burned, the embers glowing dull red. It shouldn't have burned down that much. We'd only been gone 10 minutes, maybe 15. Annie dropped her pack, beside the bench and rubbed her arms. "Let's just pack up and go." Max shook his head. "It's fine. Someone's screwing with us." "Max," I said quietly, "there's no one out here." He pointed toward the tree line, then explained that. The whistle drifted out again, softer this time, distant like it was testing us. The same 3 notes, the same pause. Something about it had changed. It was slower now, deliberate, like it knew we were listening. Annie backed up until she was pressed against the bench. "It's not funny anymore." Max forced a laugh, though it cracked halfway through. "Fine. I'll prove it's just noise." He started toward the clearing again. I grabbed his arm. "Don't." He shook me off. "It's just sound, man. It's nothing." The whistle came again, closer now. My stomach turned to ice. Max Annie called, voice sharp, "Please." He didn't stop. The trees swallowed him quickly. His flashlight bobbed between the trunks, the beam cutting across branches like white knives. Then it flickered once, twice, and went out. "Max," I shouted. Nothing. Annie took a step forward, but I pulled her back. "Wait." Then we heard it movement. Leaves crunching. Footsteps. Slow. Careful. Max's light came back on, shaking wildly, catching glimpses of bark, ground the edge of his shoe. Then it tilted upward, landing on something else. A shape between the trees. Tall. Still. It wasn't human. I didn't see much, just the outline of a body, too thin, too long. The flashlight hit its chest, and I thought I saw holes, small and circular, lined like ribs. The sound came from them. The whistle. It wasn't a tune. It was breathing. Max Annie screamed. His light dropped. The whistling stopped. And in the next second, the woods exploded with noise. Branches snapping, the thud of running feet. Max gasping, then silence. We stood there frozen, our breath ragged in the cold air. Then faintly from the dark came a voice. "Go." It was Max, weak, far away. And he grabbed my arm. "We have to." Before she could finish, his voice cut through the night again, louder this time, desperate. "Go." The whistle answered him. Closer. I didn't think. I just grabbed Annie's wrist and ran. Branches tore at our clothes, the dark pressing from every side. Behind us, the sound grew louder. Not the whistle now, but a wet dragging, like something crawling fast through the leaves. We burst into the clearing, the fire pit flickering low. Annie tripped and fell, hitting her knees. I turned to help her, but froze. Across the field at the edge of the trees, a silhouette, still, watching. For a heartbeat, I thought it was Max. But then the light from the dying fire caught its face, or where a face should have been. It was smooth, empty. Only the holes in its chest moved, expanding and collapsing in rhythm. 3 notes, pause, 3 more. Annie's voice broke into a sob. "Where's Max?" I couldn't answer. Because deep in the woods, far past that thing, another sound rose up, Max's scream. And then, nothing at all. The forest went quiet after Max's scream. Not silent, worse than that. Empty. Like sound itself had been swallowed. The trees stopped moving. Even the fire behind us barely hissed. Annie stood beside me, shaking. Her hand gripped my sleeve hard enough to leave marks. "We have to go back," she said, voice thin and breaking. I wanted to tell her no, to just run, but I couldn't. Because somewhere out there, in that dark stretch of forest we used to run through as kids, Max was still out there. I nodded once, forcing air into my lungs. "Stay close. Don't look away from me." We stepped off the clearing, flashlights cutting narrow beams through the trees. The light trembled with our hands. Every shadow looked wrong, stretched, twitching. We followed the path he'd taken, the trampled grass and broken branches marking his trail. Each step deeper felt heavier. The air was thick, humid, but cold, like walking into a throat that was breathing in slow, steady pulls. Then we saw it as flashlight, lying on the ground, still on. "Max," I whispered. No answer. Annie knelt and picked up the light. The beam flickered over something just ahead, a shape slumped against a tree. "Max," she said again, this time, a whimper. He was sitting upright, back pressed to the trunk, head tilted at an angle. That wasn't natural. His eyes were open, but they weren't looking at anything. And then I saw why. The skin around his chest was torn in perfect circles. 6 of them evenly spaced across his ribs. Not wounds holes, clean, hollow. I could see straight through them. And as we stood there, frozen air moved through them. A faint sound escaped, whistling softly in the same 3-note pattern. The same sound we'd been hearing all night. Annie's breath hitched. He's, don't say it," I whispered, because saying it would make it real. But Max's body answered for us. It breathed. A slow exhale that made the holes in his chest sing. Annie screamed, dropping the flashlight. I lunged for her, but she stumbled back, tripping over a root. Her beam swung wildly across the trees, and that's when I saw movement. Something between the trunks, pale, long, the shape of a man, but not built right. The torso twisted with each step, arms brushing the ground like they were too long to lift. It didn't walk, it slid, and with every movement, it exhaled through those hollow notes. Whistle, pause, whistle. I grabbed Annie's arm and yanked her toward the clearing. Run. We tore through the woods, branches tearing at our skin lungs, burning. The thing didn't chase fast. It didn't have to. The whistle followed at the same rhythm, never frantic, never fading. When we finally burst back into the clearing, Annie fell to her knees. I turned back, scanning the dark. The whistling stopped. The edge of the trees was still. I thought maybe we'd escaped. Maybe we'd outrun it. Then the fire snapped, and the air shifted again. A gust of wind rolled across the pit, and for the briefest moment, I saw it reflected in the flame, tall, faceless, standing at the tree line. The holes in its chest pulsed like lungs. 3 notes, pause, 3 more, and then it was gone. I dropped beside Annie, pulling her up by the shoulders. "We have to leave," I said. "Right now." She looked up at me with wide red eyes. That wasn't possible. It used him. Max. It's using him. I didn't answer, because she was right. And the worst part, the game hadn't ended. It had just started counting down. We didn't sleep. We couldn't. The forest around Camp Grinlow had gone completely still. The kind of stillness that made your bones ache to move just to prove you were still alive. Annie sat hunched near the dying fire knees, pulled to her chest, whispering under her breath. Max didn't scream. Until after it touched him, she muttered. After he stopped moving. I crouched nearby, staring into the embers, trying to convince myself there was still logic somewhere in all of this. "We don't know what it is," I said quietly. "We don't even know what it wants." Annie looked up sharply, eyes wide. "It wants us to play." Her words hit like a slap. "What?" "The whistling," she said, voice trembling but certain. "It's the same melody the statues and songs came. It's making us play. It followed the rules." Max moved when the sound stopped. I wanted to tell her she was wrong, that it was just panic talking, but deep down, I already knew she was right. Max had frozen when the sound cut out. I'd seen it happen. He didn't move again until it was too late. Annie leaned closer, whispering like the woods might overhear her. It's testing us. The fire hissed. A sharp pop sent a spark into the air, and both of us flinched. Then the sound started again. The whistle. 3 notes. Pause. 3 more. This time it wasn't distant. It was close. Right behind the tree line. Annie stood. We can't ignore it. What are you talking about? She was shaking but determined. If we don't play it, it comes for us anyway. Max didn't follow the rules right. We have to. We have to finish the game. Annie. The whistle cut off. Silence. My pulse hammered in my ears. Every instinct screamed, "Don't move." The night pressed heavy, each second dragging. Then faintly, a low hum rose from the woods, soft human wrong. Annie's eyes filled with tears. It's calling. And before I could stop her, she stepped forward. Annie. She didn't turn. The rhythm started again, slow and steady, and she matched her pace to it, 1 step at each whistle, stopping when it went silent. Her movements were jerky, deliberate, like something else was guiding her. I wanted to drag her back to scream at her, to stop, but I couldn't move. I was paralyzed by the sound, by the logic of the game that somehow felt older than all of us. The tune paused again. Annie froze mid-step. Her breath came out in sharp, frightened bursts. Then out of nowhere, a single low whistle, drawn out and heavy, like something exhaling through broken glass. Annie screamed. Her body jerked, spine snapping, backward arms flailing. The whistle warped into a shriek that tore through the trees. I fell to my knees, covering my ears, but the sound didn't stop. It vibrated through the ground, through my bones. Then, silence. When I looked up, Annie was gone. Only her flashlight remained flickering weakly in the dirt. I crawled toward it, numb, terrified, half expecting her to be lying just out of sight. But there was no body, no blood, no footprints, just air humming faintly with that tune. 3 notes, pause, 3 more. And that's when I realized it wasn't just repeating the game. It was waiting for me to take my turn. The night had swallowed the world. No stars, no wind, only the sound of my breathing and the faint echo of the forest's heartbeat. The game hadn't stopped. It just waited. For me. The clearing looked wrong now. The benches, the ashes, even the fire pit all seemed smaller, distorted under the weak flicker of my flashlight. The beam shook in my hand. It wasn't just fear. It was something heavier. Like the air itself didn't want me here anymore. Annie, I whispered, even though I knew she wouldn't answer. Only the echo came back, soft mocking. Then it began again. 3 notes, pause, 3 more. My body froze instinctively. I could feel every muscle in my neck tighten as I tried not to move. My pulse felt like thunder in my chest. When the next whistle came, I took a step forward. It wasn't a decision, more like my body already knew what to do. The rules were inside me now, like I'd played this game my whole life and just forgotten until now. Step, stop, step, stop. The rhythm guided me toward the tree line. Every time the sound cut out, the silence thickened, pressing on my ears. Every time it returned, it felt closer. The forest was no longer just trees. It was watching, breathing, counting. Halfway across the clearing, my flashlight flickered. A pulse of static electricity crawled over my skin, raising goosebumps along my arms. My leg brushed something cold, a patch of soil that felt damp, like it had just been disturbed. The whistle stopped. I froze. My lungs screamed to exhale, but I didn't dare. Not yet. Then a whisper, low and wet, slid through the dark. Keep playing. I couldn't tell if it came from the trees or my own head. The next set of notes dragged through the air. I forced my body forward, one trembling step at a time, My ankle throbbed from earlier, but the pain barely mattered. Every breath felt stolen, borrowed time before the silence came again. The trees loomed ahead, black pillars rising from a ground that seemed to pulse with its own slow rhythm. Shadows moved inside them, bending in ways that didn't match the wind. 10 feet, 5. I could see it now. The thing. It was standing in the same spot where Annie had vanished. Its skin looked stretched, too thin, pale, and slick, like candle wax left too close to the flame. The holes in its chest glowed faintly, not bright, but alive, breathing. Each exhale whistled softly, echoing the melody of the game. The whistle stopped again. I froze mid-step. My flashlight dimmed the beam, shrinking to a pale circle on the ground. The thing tilted its head, not fast, but slowly, curiously, like it was trying to understand me. I didn't move. I didn't blink. Then from behind me, another sound. A hum. Soft, fragile, familiar. It was Annie's voice. I turned before I could stop myself. She stood near the fire pit, half in shadow, half in light. Her hair hung wet and limp, her skin gray and glistening. When she breathed, the air whistled through her chest in short, stuttered bursts. Annie. Her eyes lifted to meet mine, and she smiled. But it wasn't hers. Her lips pulled too far, cracking at the corners. "Your turn," she said. The whistle blared behind me. I turned back just in time to see the creature move a blur of pale limbs and black air. It was faster than anything human. The holes in its chest flared like open mouths. Instinct took over. I ran. Branches whipped my face. My lungs burned. I didn't know where I was going, only that I had to move before the next silence. The whistling followed. It came from every direction now, above, below, inside the ground. Each note twisting, warping, laughing. When it finally stopped, I collapsed behind a fallen log, pressing a hand over my mouth to keep quiet. The air reeked of rot and soil. My flashlight flickered one last time and died. In the pitch black, I heard it breathing nearby, slow, deep, steady. It exhaled once, and through that terrible sound came something worse. A whisper. "Don't stop now." I don't know how long I stayed behind that log. Seconds, minutes, maybe hours. The forest felt alive around me, pulsing with its own heartbeat. Every breath I took echoed too loudly, like the woods were listening, waiting. I thought if I stayed still long enough, it would lose interest. But then from somewhere close, too close, came a wet, dragging inhale. It was breathing. Not like lungs, not like air. More like the forest itself was pulling me in, tasting every breath I stole. Then I heard it again, the whistle. Faint, broken. 3 notes, uneven now, like whoever, whatever was making them, had forgotten the rhythm. I peeked over the log. The clearing was different. The fire pit was gone. The benches were gone. Even the grass looked fresh, like it had never been trampled. And standing where the fire once was a figure. At first I thought it was Annie again, but no. The light from the moon hit its skin in a way that made my stomach twist. It wasn't skin anymore, just stretched bark and thin pulsing veins running beneath. The holes in its chest whistled softly with every rise and fall. Then I saw the shape behind it, the cabins, or what was left of them. Cabin 3, our cabin. The door hung half open, dark inside, and written on the wall in what looked like ash were the words, "Play until you win." I staggered backward, but a root caught my foot. Pain shot up my leg, and I fell hard, my palms sinking into the wet earth. When I looked down, the soil wasn't dirt anymore. It was soft breathing. It shifted under me like muscle. The whistle blared this time, right in my ear. I screamed and scrambled to my feet. The forest answered. Every tree seemed to exhale at once, branches rattling, leaves trembling. I ran. The woods twisted in on themselves. No matter which way I turned, I came back to the clearing. The cabins loomed like skeletons watching from the dark. The figure still stood there, perfectly still. And then a voice. Low. Familiar. You're almost there. It was Max. I spun around. His body stood at the edge of the trees, swaying like a puppet on invisible strings. The holes in his chest were glowing faintly now, lighting his face from below. He smiled, but his lips didn't move right. You have to finish the song, he whispered. Max. Please finish it, he said again, his head tilting to the side, neck cracking with the sound of wet wood. Or it'll start over. The whistle began again, surrounding me, circling like wind through hollow bones. 3 notes. Pause. 3 more. I clamped my hands over my ears, but it didn't stop. The sound was inside me. It crawled through my skull, pressing against my teeth until I felt them ache. Then silence. I froze. Not because I wanted to, but because something inside me made me. My breath hitched, and I realized the game wasn't about speed or rules anymore. It was about control. I wasn't just playing it. I was becoming part of it. In that silence, the figure finally moved. It lifted its head and exhaled long and slow. The holes in its chest flared like open mouths, and a new note, one I'd never heard before, hummed low and deep through the ground. And then, somewhere beneath my feet, something answered back. The earth pulsed once, twice, and then I understood. The camp wasn't built near the forest. It was built on it. The breathing earth, the way the air shifted, the way people had gone missing. The forest had always been alive. We were just its lungs, and I was its last breath. The forest was breathing in rhythm with me now. Every inhale I took came with the sound of wind through hollow spaces. Every exhale returned as that same 3-note whistle vibrating through the trees through my ribs. I didn't know if I was still standing in the clearing or somewhere deeper. The world had folded in on itself, trees stretching taller, the ground pulsing beneath my feet like veins in a living thing. I could still hear Max's voice somewhere behind me, distant, warped. Finish the song. Annie's whisper overlapped his weak but certain. It doesn't stop until you do. Their words tangled in my head until I couldn't tell if they were memories or the forest speaking through them. The thing was close now. I could feel it before I saw it. The shift of air, the hum that made the fillings in my teeth ache. When it appeared, it wasn't with a scream or a jump of movement. It just arrived. Tall, still, terrible. The holes in its chest pulsed like open mouths, drawing in the air. I could hear the sound of something inside them, like voices caught in a storm drain, gasping and humming all at once. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream. But something in my chest was pulling me forward instead. My body wasn't mine anymore. It was just part of the rhythm. 3 notes. Pause. 3 more. My head throbbed with every beat. When the whistling stopped, I froze without meaning to. My vision blurred. The forest leaned closer like it was holding its breath with me. Then a whisper. Touch it. I didn't know whose voice it was. Max, Annie. My own. But my hand lifted, trembling, reaching. The thing leaned forward slightly, and for the first time I saw its face. There weren't eyes, just indentations where they should have been, and inside them movement. Tiny fluttering shapes, like trapped moths trying to escape. My fingertips brushed its chest over the nearest hole. The air that poured out was freezing colder than anything I'd ever felt. And in that moment, the world stopped. The sound vanished. The trees stood still. The holes in its chest closed slowly one by one, sealing with a wet, shuddering sound. I stumbled backward, gasping the silence roaring in my ears. Then it exhaled. Not through the holes, through me. The air ripped out of my lungs, dragging every scream, every word, every breath I had left. The sound that came from my throat wasn't mine. It was the whistle, perfect, hollow, endless. I fell to my knees, clutching my chest. I could feel something moving inside me, shifting beneath my ribs, expanding. The thing stepped closer, leaned down until its featureless face hovered inches from mine. It whispered, not in words, but in tone. A melody. The final verse. Then it was gone. The forest fell silent again. I sat there until the sun began to rise, shaking empty, but somehow alive. The light looked wrong, too bright, too clean. When I finally stood, I realized the forest wasn't breathing anymore. It was me. Every breath I took came with a faint sound, 3 notes, soft and distant, leaking from somewhere deep inside my chest. I left Camp Grinlow that morning. I didn't look back. They sealed the road 2 months later. Locals said it was because of flooding or erosion. But I know the truth. Camp Grinlow wasn't shut down because it was dangerous. It was sealed because something in those woods learned how to play. And it's still waiting for someone to start the song again. They found my car 2 days later, engine cold doors still locked. No sign of Max, no sign of Annie. They said the woods were quiet that night. But I still hear it. That same 3-note whistle carried on the wind whenever I try to sleep. Sometimes I think it's calling me back. Sometimes I think I already went.